Hello, buddy. It's Wyvern here with, well, a video I've been waiting to make for a long time, and of course, the exciting news: Warhammer 3's announced trailer has dropped, and Warhammer 3 is coming out this 2021. So we can expect it sometime this year. My expectation, personally, given that based on some of the information we've received, there is still supposed to be one more DLC, at least for Warhammer 2, is that the drop for Warhammer 3 will be sometime in the late summer or early fall of this year, especially based on when Warhammer 2 released. That said, we got a pretty baller new trailer and lots of fun things to break down. So without further ado, let's jump right in, dive into this trailer, watch it in all its glory, and then discuss.
Death is like the winter chill. No door can keep it from us. And summer yet may bloom again, though ice be all upon us. My child, there is so much to tell you, that I have run out of time. The sacrifice I made was not enough. The dark gods still feed on our transgressions. Corruption. Obsession. Deceit. Rage. You must face these demons.
So, some pretty exciting stuff. As we saw there, highlight of some of the new factions, of course, were Demons of Chaos, as well as Kislev, which I think was kind of anticipated. That was definitely something has been expected. Surprisingly, at least for me, Cathay is on the menu, it would appear, and that is really some exciting news, in my opinion. Obviously, great trailer. I really, honestly loved it in general. Thought it was really well done. Love seeing some of the new units, the good old Angry Bears. Really looking forward to some Bear Cav and some of those good old pseudo Russia, pseudo Polish Lithuanian Confederation the vibes, and seeing that in action, because I'm really hoping that Kislev brings something new to the table and brings us some new play styles. It's been a faction I've honestly been looking forward to for quite a while, so it was pretty exciting to see him here. Of course, Chaos seems to be getting some new toys. How much of that is going to be for Chaos Demons versus how much of that might be added for the Warriors of Chaos is, of course, up in the air. But there is some additional information out. There is some stuff on the Steam page, though not very much of it, as well as a FAQ that was dropped. So without further ado, let's hop right on over. Now in the FAQ, nothing too fancy, to be quite honest with you guys. We are seeing that, well, it's going to be, Warhammer 3 is going to be available on Steam and the Epic Game Store. For those of you who might have started picking those games up on Epic, I guess that's nice. More importantly, though, the fact that CA is keeping things on Steam, I think is good, or at least keeping this game on Steam. I know there was some concern and some trepidation in the community that CA might try to shift everything over to Epic, which I personally would not have been a fan of at all. And but it was a concern, and I think somewhat valid in light of the way the Troy release was handled, that CA would be trying to move over there. But I'm glad to see where we're going to see it both on Steam and Epic. So if you have everything on Steam already, there should be no problem. Nothing exclusive for either, which is also good in my opinion. And otherwise, the other Warhammers should be added to Epic. So for those of you who may be Epic users, there you go. Good news there. You should be able to move on over there if you need to. And otherwise, yeah, may not be able to or won't be able to juggle things between storefronts. I don't find that surprising, but I guess some people would be hoping for that. It doesn't appear. There is some talk about it here that they're hoping to introduce it through Total War Access, but there is no guarantee of that. And of course, Warhammer 3 available on Linux and Mac OS, and there will be cross-store multiplayer, which is nice, especially if there's latecomers or new people coming into the game. After its launch. Obviously, those who have been with Warhammer 1 since the beginning, or really since Warhammer 2, probably already have the game on Steam, so you're probably not going to be backtracking and buying the game again on Epic. But if you're new to the series and maybe you started there rather than on the Steam store, then at least you're able to go back, play with your friends who might have it on Steam, that sort of thing. And I think that is good. Otherwise, there is, obviously there's a pre-order already up on Steam, as you can see over here in the tab. But there is going to be a early adopter bonus. And the early adopter bonus is a race pack. Now, I'm not sure. I personally don't mind. I'm obviously going to be getting Warhammer 3 as soon as I can. And I'm pretty hyped for Warhammer 3 and don't really mind race pack being sort of an early adopter bonus. That said, it does feel a little bit like that could be cut content. I could definitely see that irking some people, rubbing some people the wrong way. And not necessarily, I would say, the best move. The Force of Chaos being added as an early adopter bonus back in Warhammer 1 was really poorly received, and I thought it was a smart move when CA decided to make Norska a Warhammer 1 game, or Warhammer 1 faction, as the DLC pre-order for Warhammer 2. So I kind of anticipated something along those lines. I expected the last DLC for Warhammer 2 to be the early adopter bonus, and kind of surprised it's not. I think this might be a bit of a bad move. Definitely, I would say not a great PR move for CA, but hopefully it's a good race pack. One thing we are seeing, and as we're going through here, we'll be seeing what races are available, is that one thing we are seeing is that the races, demons, are being divided up into a variety of different races. We're also getting Kislev as well as Grand Cathay. And there's actually going to be 9 legendary lords available right off the bat, which in my opinion is that's a jump. Back in Warhammer 1 or Warhammer 2 dropped, you only had 8 lords to choose from, and you did at least have 8 separate starting points. Back in Warhammer 1, you only had 4 separate start locations and 8 lords. And in Warhammer 2, that evolved to 8 separate start locations and 8 lords. And now in Warhammer 3, we are going to be getting 6 different factions, with the demons apparently being divided up. I actually didn't expect that, and it's in some ways a pleasant surprise, in some ways worrisome. I'm a little concerned how CA is going to be trying to pad out these factions, or what they're going to be doing to separate them. At the same time, if it's done well, it could be cool to have every chaos lord, every chaos faction function, or every Chaos Gods faction function independently. Kislev and Grand Cathay, I would assume, will function as a normal faction. Isn't really that much of a surprise. A little surprise for getting Cathay. But 9 Legendary Lords, which with 6 factions is a little bit odd. I obviously expect 1 Lord apiece for the Ruinous Powers, and then 2 Lords for Kislev and Grand Cathay, which does leave a Lord slot. And I wonder if that's going to be some sort of Chaos United or Overart, or maybe Bellicor, or perhaps Archeon would be re-released as a standalone Lord. That would be a little bit odd, but perhaps it could be done, certainly. Some sort of Chaos Undivided major faction. Could be interesting for sure. Maybe maybe Kislev or Cathay are getting their own third Legendary Lord to begin with. Maybe one thing I could see, if Cathay especially isn't slated for future DLC, maybe they'd release them with because they are a faction that wasn't really in Warhammer Fantasy before now. So perhaps there isn't as much material. Maybe they're just going to give them 3 Lords and call it a day. I'm not sure. I don't want to call it at that, but that is also a possibility in my mind. Besides that, no Age of Sigmar shenanigans. And there is going to be an extra race pack. So I would assume Ogres or Chaos Dwarves. My bet being more towards Chaos Dwarves. More because they didn't have as extensive of a roster or as extensive of a Lord selection. So I would see them as the more likely race pack choice. And obviously, if that race pack is in the quality of Tomb Kings or Vampire Coast, we could be seeing 4 Lords there. But because they were a bit more limited than Ogres, I would see Dwarves the way to go. Otherwise, maybe, very maybe, it could be Indoor Nippon. If CA decides to go the whole worldwide route, which seems to be the way they're going, then the last major human factions left in Warhammer, the Warhammer world, are Nippon and Ind. There's been no mention of them, no talk of them. Could be Dogs of War as well, as a pre-order faction. That they also would be kind of limited in roster, and so I could see them. But there's a variety of factions it could be. The fact that CA is now branching out past the original tabletop factions with Cathay, like truly branching out past them. This isn't even White Dwarf stuff, or basically Chaos Light the way Norska was. Like really its own original thing essentially with Cathay. It does open up a vast window of possibilities. Obviously, there's going to be a big map, though by the look of it, it's going to be delayed again, much as was the case with Warhammer 2. Mortal Empires dropped about a month after the main release. So I don't necessarily mind that. I'll be enjoying playing whatever the Vortex or Grand Campaign equivalent will be, the base campaign will be for Warhammer 3 in the meantime. But if you're mostly just looking to get Mortal Empires version 2, then that could potentially be delayed, since it looks like the focus is more on Warhammer 3, and that makes sense. As you can also see that Games Workshop has expanded and worked more on Kislev and Cathay. So a lot of this stuff that they're going to see is doing is actually with the blessing of Games Workshop, and hopefully using materials that Games Workshop may have written, or materials Games Workshop has, and should be hopefully more rather well in line, I would assume or hope, with canon and with all that is currently known about these factions. Cathay is a little bit more than sort of a paragraph lore blurb, so there isn't too much to go off of. Kislev, however, has had a tabletop roster in Warmaster, I think most recently, and some limited shenanigans in White Dwarf and whatnot. They have had various iterations of their units and roster done over the years, so there's something to go off there, and honing it with G-Dub's help seems like a good move. Otherwise, localization will be, and mod and multiplayer support, all that. Localization in a plethora of different languages: English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Russian, Polish, Czech, Turkish, Brazilian, Portuguese, Korean, and simplified as well as traditional Chinese. Multiplayer support and mod support. But that's all cool. But really, for me, it's about what's dropping. So 9 Lords, 6 factions, and an additional faction if you pre-ordered. So pretty hefty content drop. Definitely makes it worth the wait if the quality is there, if the quality is up to snuff. Definitely excited to see Ogre Kingdoms as well, and Chaos Dwarves, who I cannot see being left out in the long term. I'll be excited to see what CA has done for them. I thought that was a really great trailer there. We did get on the Steam page, there isn't much new. There is talk of a figure who seeks to send the whole world plunging into cataclysm, and he'll need a champion to do so. So I don't know if that's going to be that 9th campaign thing that we're talking about. If that's going to be sort of a if that's going to be the sort of ever chosen, or whatever the case may be, the ninth lord that we're going to get with Warhammer 3. Obviously, we get some neato pictures as we saw in the trailer, screenshots. Wonderful, excellent looking juggernauts here with Khornate Knights. So this is kind of interesting, because this is spicing up chaos. This is spicing up the base faction of chaos, or giving us chaos sub factions. Because if this was just chaos demons, you'd have probably bloodthirsters riding the juggernaut, or not bloodthirsters, bloodletters riding the juggernaut. Bloodthirsters are a bit beefier than that. Bear Cav, of course, highly anticipated, because that is what Kislev is all about. Not really. That's not necessarily what Kislev's all about. But the bears are definitely a thematically defining thing. Winged Lancers, of course, looking like the Winged Hussars, though. Kind of a different helm style from later Winged Hussar styles. One of the things that always gets to me, and it's a bit of a segue here, is the sort of motley assortment of different styles that Games Workshop often uses, different armor and armament types that they often, and uniform aesthetics that they often utilize for factions. So the Winged Lancers here, the armor definitely looks like something more in the Middle Ages, or at best late medieval period. And then you have but Winged Lancers, of course, would have been around, especially the more iconic look is something more from the 16th, 17th century. But regardless, I digress. Obviously, cool shots. Hopefully we get some snow battles. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some weather effects. Could be fun. The Tsarina, and of course all the various Kislevite militia, and the Queen's Guards. I do forget the exact name of these. They were added actually in the Games Workshop recently posted about updating Kislev with the elite Queen's Guard troops, and the way it read, at least in the Games Workshop site, felt more like a knockoff of the Sisters of Avalorn, sort of like what they are for, but with ice bows and ice magic. But here they seem to be armed with pole arms, so that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll be getting a more interesting unit than just discount Sisters of Avalorn, and I'd be pretty excited to see what exactly we get. Obviously, for the factions, might be doing some lore and speculation videos in the future, just discussing what we might be seeing from the different playstyles. Personally, I'm expecting Kislev to play like a bit of a mix between Empire and High Elves, with some lighter armored Heavy Cav and Shock Cav, probably lower armor values than High Elves and Bretonia, much less Empire, but with access to black powder, some hybrid weaponry, and of course monstrous cavalry. And of course their own little twist on that with ice magic and perhaps some sort of unique faction mechanic to reflect their sort of hardiness and stubbornness. Cathay, well, that could be interesting. There's a lot of inspiration from ancient and medieval China that CA could draw from, or GW could draw from. There is mention of a variety of different dragons and ogres and automata or pseudo automata, obviously referencing the Chinese clay armies, and so we'll see what they do with Cathay. There's a lot that could be there, and of course demons. Well, we'll be looking at a lot of melee, a lot of rushing of various sorts. It will be interesting to see if we see a rework of Crumbling too, because that was a mechanic. Demons had their own version, I believe, where they had more randomized effects. You could actually end up with more demons, I think, coming through. But basically another functionally unbreakable army, which not exactly thrilled with, but could be very interesting to see the different playstyles demons bring to the table, whether light and damage, light and punchy, more sustained and grindy, very attrition based with Nurgle, perhaps a bit more range and magic with Tzeentch, that sort of thing. Just a variety of different different styles, but regardless, definitely excited. Hopefully you guys did like that trailer. Hopefully you guys are as hyped as I am. If yes or no, well, let me know what you think down below. What do you think? I'm pretty excited to see all these factions that I honestly, some of them, Cathay especially, I just did not expect to see them hit the table, to see demons being separated into multiple factions. That's both concerning and exciting because it could go great or bad. Little, not sure how I feel about the pre-order faction situation, but maybe it's not as much of a big deal. Maybe it won't be as big of a deal for people as I think it might be, but regardless, let me know what you guys think below. Hopefully you guys enjoy this little video, and there will be more content in regards to Warhammer 3 coming in the future. As always, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.